My friend, Pat Buttram. I'm Randy Andrew. I've been an entertainer most of my life, and I've had the privilege of meeting and working with some very talented people in show business. Pat Buttram was one of those people. Some of you may remember Pat as the comical sidekick from the 1940s cowboy movies and early days of television. He first started with Roy Rogers and Dale Evans in the 1940s, but they already had a sidekick, another Pat, named Pat Brady, as well as the bewhiskered Gabby Hayes. Pat Buttram then teamed up with Gene Autry in the movies and stayed with him through the 1950s on TV's The Gene Autry Show. When that show ended in the late 50s, Pat went on to appear in many TV shows, including The Real McCoys, The Danny Thomas Show, Alfred Hitchcock Presents, and The Munsters. But it was his portrayal as Eustace Haney on the TV sitcom Green Acres that kept Pat in the public eye for 6 years. I watched that show from my hometown in Terre Haute, Indiana. Alvy Moore, who played the agriculture agent Hank Kimball on the show, was from my hometown, Terre Haute. When I arrived in Southern California in 1968, I got to know Alvy, and he invited me to the set of Green Acres one day. That's where I met Mr. Haney himself, Pat Buttram. He had such a distinctive voice that he described it this way: I never quite made it through puberty.
Oh, excuse me. I'd like to see...
Howdy, Mr. Douglas.
Mr. Haney?
Well, what are you doing here?
Waiting for your husband.
I came to see the Wright brothers.
You're looking at them.
What?
I just bought them out, lock, stock, and airplane.
Mr. Haney was always trying to con Mr. Douglas out of every penny he could during the run of Green Acres. The show ended in 1971, and Pat continued to guest on more TV shows, hang out with his old cowboy buddies, and become one of the most sought-after master of ceremonies in Hollywood. He emceed hundreds of roasts, dinners, and even hosted an event for me in 1980 when I was named honorary mayor of Apple Valley, California. The next day, Pat served as Grand Marshal of our Apple Valley Powwow Days parade. We sure had fun that weekend, but everyone noticed that Pat had lost quite a bit of weight, and it was feared that he might be seriously ill. Shortly after that, I joined the Las Vegas show, and I didn't see Pat for several years. When I returned to the High Desert in the late 1980s, Pat had become a co-owner of one of High Desert's television stations, KVBT Channel 64. I had lunch one day with Pat and the station's manager, Ray Webb. I was happy to see Pat had regained weight, looked like his old self, and was back in the saddle again. We talked about me being involved with the station as a host of an hour-long daily talk show live from the San Bernardino County Fairgrounds. One thing that was fun about those times was that most of our staff meetings took place in local cocktail lounges. After the meeting ended, we would sit there, have a few drinks, and listen to Pat tell stories. And when the fair show started, Pat would often be one of the guests. I never knew if he was telling me the truth or setting me up for a joke. Like this time when I introduced him.
Here, there's a car out there, license number 8615J249116036. It's the car's okay, but the license plate is blocking the driveway. So, is that your car?
That was my car parked over there.
And here was a true story about Elvis Presley's manager.
Colonel Tom Parker's Dancing Turkeys, 25 cents. This is a true story, so help me. And so I went there and I said, Tom, what do you got? He says, 25 cents a dancing turkeys. They had signs. They dance. They do the hula hula, the Susie Q. And so these farmers would pay a quarter and they'd go inside, and he had a table that's covered with sawdust, and it was metal. And he had about 20 turkeys on it. And when he'd get ready, he'd put a record on, and he'd turn on a little switch, and this table would become a hot plate, and the turkeys go jumping, and farmers say, "How does he do it? How does he train them to do that?" And that was Colonel Tom.
I did that show for the next 3 years. By then, the call letters had changed to KHIZ-TV. My co-hosts Julie Wingfield and Pat were there to join me at the bottom of a demonstration to find out what the importance of a seatbelt really meant.
Okay. Here you are. Okay, they're ready. Here we go.
Oh, yeah. Hey.
Boy, that was fun.
All right.
Yes, I was saved. I was saved.
You're now tenor with the boys' choir.
I noticed.
Thank you very much, Pat.
Pat continued acting and lent his voice to many cartoon characters the next couple of years. His last appearance was in the third film from the Back to the Future trilogy. Shortly after that, Pat passed away from kidney failure in 1994. He was laid to rest near his hometown in Alabama at the age of 78. Rest in peace, my friend.